Feeling stuck or unfulfilled? Searching for more meaning in your work and life? Wondering what's next? You're not alone, and you're in the right place. This is Focus on Why, the podcast that turns reflection into action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and each week I dive deep with guests who've chosen to live and work with purpose. Together we explore what drives them, shapes their decisions, and gives their life meaning. Through real stories and honest conversations, you'll discover how to gain clarity, make confident choices, and create a life that truly matters. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we dive in, do you need help creating a more purposeful way of life? Through one-to-one coaching, I can help you clarify your why and create a plan that aligns your values with your work. Book a free 30-minute discovery call with me today. The booking link is in the show notes. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Louise Baxter. Louise, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm very excited to have this call. So let's start with, what is it you're focusing on right now, Lou?
My current focus is around protection of vulnerable consumers, or trying to educate people on consumer vulnerability, specifically in relation to fraud and scams, but also slightly wider around people's consumer rights and how people access redress if something goes wrong.
Now, this is quite a niche space. How did you get here?
Well, there's not very many of us these days. I think that's the problem. So I've been a trading standards officer since 2002. So I started with East Sussex Trading Standards. I actually started because it was better money than temping, and I wanted to go back to Australia. And then I didn't. Then I got married and loads of other things happened, and I loved the job because it was talking to real people and translating the law into a way that people could understand it and then be able to action their own rights. So that's where it started. I did a law degree at uni and I loved the law side of things. I find it fascinating and can hyper focus my way into all sorts of different legislation. And then I started what is now the National Trading Standards Scams team in 2012. So now I work predominantly on fraud and scams in my day job, but I've got a few other jobs as well.
A few other jobs? Just throw that in there.
I'm a non-exec director for the Property Ombudsman Service for an organisation called Trustmark. I do some work for a charity. I chair a group called the National Independent Consumer Organisation. I sit on the Dispute Resolution Ombudsman Board and some other bits of consumer-related things. I'm also, probably the most important, which I just forgot about, is I'm the CEO of an organisation called Consumer Friend, which is my own organisation, which tries to champion consumers with quite a focus on vulnerability, but also neurodivergence.
Oh, honestly, there's so many different paths that I could pursue and dive into. I just want to ask, did you ever go back to Oz?
No, I didn't. No. I've been invited. I've been invited to go for work because they want. I've been invited onto what's been coined a super panel to help them implement some of the things that we've got in the UK to ensure consumers get better outcomes when it comes to financial services. So I might get to do that next year. That would be exciting.
Yeah, amazing. So you're sitting on all these boards. You've got an understanding of the importance from the legal side because of your degree and also from the years of experience here. It sounds very detailed and very meticulous in terms of ensuring that people are safe. Again, this space, why this over anything else now that you've got experience?
I think so. Trading standards is a funny one. We've had loads of cuts, but everything that trading standards does touches everybody's lives. I don't think people have a understanding of what trading standards is or what we do. But I also think because we're such an aging profession now, and there's not very many of us, some of the focus in trading standards is on, rightly so, the other legislation that we enforce. So the consumer education, consumer rights stuff, like what your rights are if you're buying something, are firstly, there's not many of us that are experts in it anymore. And secondly, people don't think it's relatable to them. And I like to make them join the dots to see that it is relatable to them, because it touches every aspect of your life, whether it's a short measure of a pint in a pub to whether it's buying something on the internet and it's unsafe or counterfeit, or an outright scam where you buy something and it never arrives. And I think my fundamental thing with fraud and scams is historically, and that's where I get really passionate about it. Historically, it's been seen as a victimless crime, and the impact of somebody being defrauded can be catastrophic. It's not just about people having their money stolen, it's more than that. The mental health impacts, the fact that people then don't go to work, they then need to seek additional support from the NHS to support their rehabilitation, and they're not treated the same as other victims of crime. And I'm not very good at inequality or fair unfair. If I see it, I've got to do something about it.
So I hear, and that's absolutely coming through here. Why is it becoming an aging profession?
Well, it's trying to get people into the profession again. So if people don't know what trading standards is, why would you want a career in it? It's also public sector. So you're never going to earn £1 million. It's whether people want to work in the public sector. And the training is quite extensive. So it's after your degree, you then have to come in and train to be competent to be a trading standards officer. So there are lots of barriers to it. And we've had 60% cuts over the last 10 years or so. So there's not a lot of money to bring in new people into the profession.
You mentioned the victimless crime, and I hear you in terms of you're not being treated the same as other types of crimes and being a victim of that. But as you say, the impact and the ripples that come out of that can be huge. I was talking with my husband the other day, and he mentioned the number of how much you have to lose financially before it even gets taken seriously by the police. And I thought it would be in the tens of thousands. It wasn't. It was in the millions. Huge numbers.
It's 41% of all reported crime. So fraud is 41% of all reported crime. And we estimate that between 5 and 15% of people actually report the fact they've been a victim. There are several reasons for that. One, the reporting mechanism is clunky, and there's lots of different organisations to report it to. But the main reason for it is the blame and shame. We did some research. I chair a research group because I really want to kick the agenda on this stuff. And we mapped across how victims of domestic abuse are responded to by the general public and law enforcement, and how victims of fraud and scams, and particularly romance fraud, which is domestic abuse in my opinion, are treated. And we use language like, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? That sort of thing doesn't happen to people like you. And then we use similar language in, why did you fall for that? That sort of thing doesn't happen to people like you. Oh, you were fooled. So we place all the heat on the feet of the victims, not on the perpetrators. And then if you look at the perpetrator behaviour, so the criminal behaviour behind it, because that's what it is. So we use the word scams, which sounds a bit Del Boy, but scams are fraud and fraud is a crime. But it's really difficult because if we use fraud, it doesn't land with people. They don't understand what it is. If you use scams, it's a very colloquial, recognised term. But the criminals use very similar tactics. Again, it's coercive control, it's manipulation, it is grooming for adults. It's, I'm going to get as much personal information out of you as I possibly can. Then I'm going to traffic that information from organised crime group to organised crime group. And the more information I gather on you, the more susceptible you become to personalised scams, which then means you become the product. So your data becomes a value to the criminals as well. So we're wishy-washy about the language. We often say, oh, scam victims are only old or stupid. Statistically, that's incorrect. It's the 30 to 35-year-olds that are most likely to respond to a scam. So we do a lot of work on trying to train practitioners on how to better support victims using things like cognitive behaviour therapy, a trauma-informed response, dealing with it with empathy, watch the language that you use, don't silence people with your judgment or your vulnerability bias, because vulnerability as well is something that is still really stigmatised. People don't like to admit that they're vulnerable or aren't aware that they're vulnerable, and it's in situational vulnerability, which is dynamic, and we all move in and out of periods of it, that we may be more susceptible to responding to a scam or just not getting the best outcome, making a choice we wouldn't make had we not been situationally vulnerable at a particular time.
Just by demystifying some of those commonly held myths, you've got me really thinking about the use of language, the daily occurrence that this is happening, the just how prolific it is, and also the who's being targeted the most.
It's a funny crime. So quite often, if somebody hacks my bank account and I'm not involved and they take all my money, I get that refunded straight away. I didn't do anything. I wasn't complicit in that. Sometimes, so if I take romance fraud as an example, you've spoken to this person, you've cultivated a relationship with this person, that criminal, and it has then asked you for money, but you think that that is your partner, your love interest, your friend, right? But so you have to do something to become a victim of a crime, which is where some of the blame and the shame comes from, which is where as human beings, so Amy, you're a victim of a scam. So I go, you're stupid. Why are you so stupid? Because you have to be stupid, because if you're not stupid, that can happen to me. So, and we do that a lot with domestic abuse situations as well, where we go, that wouldn't happen to me. Well, how do you know? Because you think as well, in the situations, there's a lot of things around, you need to spot the red flags. Well, in domestic abuse situations, sometimes people turn red flags into daisies because they're being emotionally abused to think that way. And sometimes as well, when people are repeatedly targeted and you're more likely to be a scam victim if you've been a scam victim once, it's because it's what you know, it's repeat patterns of behaviour. And you've got to continually have this huge amount of self-awareness to actually not respond in the way that you've always responded. So the expectations that we have of people is too much. We're living in a world of vulnerability. 67% of us have a characteristic of vulnerability. And at any pinch point, a bereavement, a relationship breakdown, a house move, a period of financial shock, you could be targeted by a domestic abuser, a fraudster, a criminal of any sort, and make a decision you wouldn't normally make because of that fluctuating vulnerability. So we have to not differentiate ourselves from victims by giving them a stupid label or a greedy label just to protect our own peace.
And it is that, isn't it? It's a defensive statement
Mm-hmm.
to be making. Why is it that there is, oh, I'm the exception to the rule, it won't happen to me?
It doesn't land very easily because, again, fraud and scams, when I talk about it, so we've got some statistics around it, and the true cost, including the hidden cost, so well-being, time off work, and the financial and the money that's stolen. I keep going financial loss, but it's not lost. It's been stolen. Loss makes it sound like you've lost your wallet. It's about £26 billion a year. So it's too big sometimes for people to grasp. The other thing is people would be frightened, and then a lot of the time people then wouldn't access things like online banking, use the internet, all of those things. But it's people think that they are savvy and aware enough, and that there's still some myths around fraud and scams that you'll notice it because there'll be a typo. They're easy to spot. Some other research we did was around neurodivergence, and if you are neurodivergent, you're 50% more likely to be a victim of fraud or scams. But also there's a false sense of confidence in their ability to spot them. So they think that they can spot them more than somebody that's neurotypical. So there's so many varying factors. It's also sometimes with the cost of living crisis, we're seeing such vulnerability because of the fact that people are in poverty. I did some work recently around counterfeit goods, and I was really clear with the reporter. I said to the reporter, you have to really balance your piece with protecting and advising and giving that information, but also realising that somebody might be buying something counterfeit and knowing they're buying something counterfeit because it's a choice of a cheap counterfeit item or no presents for their children at Christmas. We work and we live in the same sort of demographic as we live in. So you and I are not a true reflection of the general community or the general public. The average reading age of a UK adult is 9 to 12, with 7.1 million adults at a reading age of 9 or below. We sometimes talk in big words so that we exclude half the audience. We talk in the passive voice, which doesn't work. I can't understand the passive voice. I need it in the active voice. It sends my brain into overload. And people don't like to go, I don't understand that, because we don't want to be made to feel stupid. we're also very British. We don't talk about money. Culturally, it's not something we talk about. And if you're talking about older scam victims, which there still are many older scam victims, there's this additional fear that someone will take their financial autonomy if they think, if their family members or whomever think that they're not making the wisest decisions for their money. So it's a whole, there's so much psychology behind it, but there are simple solutions, in my opinion, which is talk about it, which is what we're doing, which is ideal.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing with all these statistics is how overwhelming as a concept it can be in
Mm-hmm.
terms of you could spiral into, you were just talking about the more elderly victims, the older victims who may feel like they're going to lose their financial autonomy. And this is the case, is that you can feel so vulnerable if you start to look at all what's there. So is it a case of, actually, I'm just going to ignore that it happens, so then I won't feel vulnerable?
Well, there's that, and there's also this. We're in a world of where we're chucked so much information, it's ridiculous. So we're in a world of overwhelm, but massive underwhelm. So it's not relevant to my life right now, so I don't need to know about it. So I'm not shopping for my car insurance in January because my car insurance is not due till December. I'll shop for my car insurance in December because we haven't got the capacity. And with the onset of smart devices as well, we get so much stuff thrown at us. It's similar to the work that I do with Consumer Friend around consumer education. So that would be, if you've bought a TV and it's faulty, what are your rights? You don't need to know what your rights are until your TV is faulty. That's not something you need to know about. We are, from my own personal experience, I have to manage my diary, which is lots of diaries, my children's diaries, my children's social lives, the finances, clean the house, cook the tea, do all of those things. And if you get called at a time where you're not concentrating, or you're doing something else, or you're in a period of high stress because you haven't bought enough Christmas presents, or your relationship's just broken down, or someone's poorly, or something like that, you respond in a very different way. So the messages don't land unless that's happened to you, which is it's really difficult to get people to do the self-protect things in relation to fraud and scams. I mean, the best bit of advice I always have is verify who you're talking to. If you're not sure, just verify it via an external source. But the criminals are really clever because they push you into a hot state very quickly because of the emotional manipulation. So there should never be any shame attached to that. We're going back to, oh, she deserved it because her skirt was too short. It's that sort of, it's that harsh, and nobody deserves to be a victim of a crime.
You started this in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Is it getting better or worse?
I think fraud is grown. I think more people are involved. I think there's more resource thrown at it. I think there's greater public awareness. I do think I have two thoughts about AI. One is guns don't kill people, rappers do. So AI doesn't scam people, people do. I think it's lucrative, but I do think there are lots of things in play at the moment that will potentially assist and stop it and disrupt it. But I do think we have to keep the technological advances. I mean, in that it's getting fired at us left, right, and centre. It needs to be more joined up. Sometimes it can be a weirdly competitive space to work in. People want to, well, that's my job. Well, it's everyone's job. If we all did it for 24 hours a day till the day we die, it's the tip of the iceberg. But with any organised crime, it's lucrative. It's really lucrative. And criminals don't care. They don't think about the victims.
No, absolutely not. And in terms of purpose, Lou, is this your purpose?
I like to help people who find it difficult to speak up for themselves. If people are unable to understand information, or there's a duty for us to make it easy for them to understand, and if they can't, then we need to do things to protect them. So that scams and fraud, yes, I love it. I do love it, and I have made a big impact, and it's something I will probably always talk about. But I also think the consumer vulnerability work is bigger, and there's a lot more work to be done there around just understanding your customer base. I mean, to be honest, I'll put myself out of business. It's basically just be a little bit kind. It's not anything really like academic like that, but there are simple things that you can do to identify somebody that might just need an extra bit of help. And that could be really something really simple, like print off the paperwork so they can read it, explain the paperwork to them, give them a little bit more time. And we've lost a bit of art of care for people, and communication is lacking in lots of places.
You mentioned that it's to help people who find it difficult to speak up for themselves.
Hmm.
Usually, when people are talking about their purpose on the show, it's because there's been a lack or a void of this particular experience in their own life. Is that true for you? That there was a point?
I would say so. So I've got two neurodivergent children. So one of them has autism, one of them has attention deficit. I also have attention deficit. And I think on reflection, a lot of that as well is because, and the more I've researched it, I got a late diagnosis when I was 43. So it's reflecting on the 20,000 additional negative messages I was given as a child annually, and those microaggressions where I potentially felt that my voice wasn't heard and nobody gave me the tools to be able to effectively communicate or manage my neurodivergence properly. It was things like, you're not allowed any sweets because you're hyperactive. Right? Those sort of things, where now when I reflect on it, I'm like, if somebody had just switched that. When I got diagnosed, the doctor that diagnosed me said, your ADHD appears very moderate because your coping strategies are so honed. So I took two things from that. One, no one helped me do that. That's sad. Two, well done, Louise. So it was a bit of a double-edged sword, but also vulnerability as well. When my dad passed away, I was 25, and he died very suddenly. And the mental health impact and the bereavement that I had after that, it broke me for a really long time. It took me a really long time to understand it, to process it, and to get the right support that I needed to be able to manage that properly. And I think there's a real lack of awareness of that vulnerability and that situational vulnerability. Because on the surface, I'm a very resilient, I'm quite not hard, I'm direct, I'm managing my life, I'm managing my stuff. So what tends to happen is when you're not, and for me personally, in times where I've been vulnerable, people don't address it properly because it upsets the balance, which then makes people go, well, if she's vulnerable, who's looking after us? So it's almost like, let's pretend that's not happening. And then what I would then do is lean into, oh, other people's needs are greater than mine, so I will give them what I need, what they need, rather than what I need, which can exacerbate that vulnerability. And I think if somebody just held out and just went, look, these are the things we can do to help you without me having to ask for it, or this is why you feel like that, I think it would have been less of a struggle. But then maybe I wouldn't be doing all the things I was doing if it wasn't. So
We will never know.
no.
But I am with you with the late diagnosis and the sending love and compassion all the way back to the younger version of ourselves to really recognize the struggles. But as you say, the coping mechanisms have masked them for years and have become our sort of way of operating and becoming the super power that we are, but actually also to the detriment of our own health sometimes. Is that for you, that you can just keep?
100%. I think as well, having the diagnosis, and I got it because we suspected my daughter had it, and she was like, "Can you be diagnosed? Because then we can work on me afterwards." And I was like, "Absolutely." And I knew I had it, but I think I was still a bit shocked. And then I got a bit of a shame. I got a bit of shame about it as well, like, "Oh God, right, all of these things." But what it's actually done is, and it's not something I always talk about. I'm starting to talk about it more now, but and with the the work that I've been trying to do with myself, it's leaning into my authentic self, which means less masking, which has meant it's not as exhausting if I'm only doing the things that I should be doing, but also has led to very uncomfortable periods of still. And I'm still don't know how to manage that very well because it makes me feel like I'm not achieving, not pleasing, letting people down. And being still is something that it's not something I've ever been.
Unless you're asleep.
Unless I'm asleep, which I don't do very well either. So
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, it really is like holding up a mirror to the way that I operate. Also, add in there that if you achieve, then you get praise,
Yes.
right?
Yep. And I love praise. I thrive on it. I'm a pick me girl. Pick me! Pick me! What, you need a volunteer? That's me! To my own detriment, to the point that I'll be like flogging myself because I just want. It sometimes can lead. I'm very aware of it now, but it can lead into like full martyr complex. I'm so busy. So then someone will go, I just don't know how you do what you do. And I'm like, I know, because I'm amazing. When I'm actually like, I'm on the edge of a meltdown. But I'm much more aware of that now, and I try to go, no, that doesn't serve you. You don't need to do that. I'm not. I try now not to put myself in positions where I see a social or an injustice, because if I see it, I cannot walk away from it. I have to do something about it. So what I've realised is don't go to as many things, because if I see it, that's not something I can not manage, because then I feel like, well, if someone's got to do something about that, it doesn't always have to be me.
It doesn't have to be you, but given the amount of time that you've worked in this space,
Mhm.
you have the access to the resources, to the tools, to the solutions. And so I hear from this that it's almost like, well, I can't walk away because I'm doing someone a disservice and I'm not honoring my values here of helping and serving and fairness.
But there's so many causes. That's the problem, isn't it? There's so many different things where you're like, that's unfair, that's unjust. I'm quite passionate about financial literacy as well, and consumer and media literacy, getting that into the school systems. I used to work, before I did the scam team job, I used to do loads of work with special educational facilities and schools on getting consumer information onto the national curriculum. My job's sort of taken me away a little bit. We do some scams education work with our Friends Against Scams campaign, but there's such a need for life's core life skills, particularly with those children that might have an additional need or don't quite read the room in the same way that a neurotypical child might. And the school system woefully fails those children on many, many, many occasions. Like even my two, who will be fine, they are brilliant children, and no matter what happens at school, they will both be fine. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But I have far more resources than most. So there are so many children that don't have access to the right support or the right information, that they need to have a greater understanding of why they are the way that they are as well. It's that we have it in our house. So my kids call it a certificate. So if somebody's got a formal diagnosis, they're like, have you got a certificate? I got a certificate. So it was like a badge of honour. One of them deals with it quite well, the other one not so much. But it's also that it's a reason, not an excuse as well. So it's not something you don't grow out of it. You don't live your life. Life will always be harder. And I think that recognition of that, and one of my team this week, it was actually quite a moment. We had some training for internally for our team, because we're going to look at pushing out this research to the wider fraud landscape. And the training was all around attention deficit and autism and how it manifests and all these things. And if you're autistic, you're 9 times more likely to take your own life. Like the stats around it, around mental health impact, are incredible. And we went through all of the what it means and all of this stuff. And one of them messaged me afterwards. She went, I didn't realise it was so hard to be you. And I was like, it really is. But also really joyful, but really hard. And I think
It's true.
that's, isn't it?
Well, we just don't know what it's like to be another person. We don't know what they see. We I was watching a program last night about color. We don't see the same color as anybody else, but we can't have a conversation about that because you've got no reference points.
Right. No. The way I described it, it was today actually. I went on a walk with my friend and I described it today as like having a continuous marching band in your head continuously, but someone in the marching band has got a broken tambourine. Someone's just off playing a different song. Someone's playing Katy Perry. Someone's singing to Madonna. someone's walking backwards, someone's roly-poly in. and it's like trying to herd that constantly with one of the band going, I'm just gonna go get a coffee. I know we're just about to go on.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And my definition is that I have 40 TV screens and they're CCTV, and I have to monitor all of them and make sure that each of them is not in doing something that shouldn't be happening, and it's just constantly exhausting.
My other half described it like this. I was like, excuse me, I've got all my ducks in the row. He went, yours aren't even ducks, you've got a chicken and a bag of flour.
I love that. And I was talking with we were at a conference earlier this year, and somebody challenged from the stage, when are ducks ever in a row?
Yeah,
It's like,
that's
apart from
true.
if they've been nailed to the wall.
That's really true. But I think as well that the importance of it as well is whether it's an actual diagnosis or a self-diagnosis or recognizing any of the traits, is the more that we talk about it, the more permission we give for people to then share. I've had some really good chats this week with people at work about it, but also about their experiences as parents. And we're not always honest about our relationship with our children or our experiences as parents, because we think we need to portray this. Oh my God, it's so amazing in my house. We all eat dinner together and then we colour, then we watch a film and eat some popcorn, right? There is none of that in my house, but I'm very honest about it. So then the people that need to have an honest conversation will have that with me, because there's no shame about it. There's no shame going, do you know what? I don't like them today. We all had cereal for dinner and I had wine. Because that's what needed to happen so that nobody lost it. Because it can be
And it
really
is about
tricky.
keeping it real.
It is,
Yeah,
it
I
is, and also being a woman in the fraud space is a tricky place to be. So where I'm also quite small, so where I'm 4'9", it's not as bad as it used to be, but the gender inequality is still there. And I've been in for a very long time, and the amount of times, even last week at a conference I went to where I was doing chairing a panel and then doing a full presentation on a massive stage, three people during the course of the day, men, told me how small I was. I'm 45 years old. Do they not think I know? It's not a new thing. I didn't wake up on that day having lost a foot. It's it's a difficult position, especially chuck in the ADHD as well. Then you fire up as well. So I have to manage myself because men are assertive, women are aggressive. Little women are particularly aggressive. So it's a constant regulation of yourself. How am I being perceived? How do I need to be perceived? I've stopped doing that quite so much, which actually makes people perceive me better because I'm not overthinking it too much, which means it's authentic rather than acting, because the masking can sometimes lead to an acting position.
I'm curious, what is it that people feel the need to comment on your height?
I sometimes think it's connection. Let's have a joke, see if she's funny. Let's see if we can connect with her. I hope the majority of it is that. I think some of it is belittling, like like actual like that's a faux pas, isn't it? Belittling, but it is. It's like you're really good at your job, so let's just make you a bit smaller. So there's a little bit of that sometimes. But I do often think sometimes it's a bit of a sense check because of the way that I am, and I'm quite chatty and will have banter and say what I think. So most things that are in my head come out of my mouth. It's almost like I've given permission to have that sort of banter, which I don't actually mind depending on who it's coming from. If I don't know you, I don't like it because you don't know me. That's not appropriate in my opinion. That is a belittling situation. And my stock response to that is now, that's basic. And then I walk away. You would never go up to somebody that you hadn't met or a colleague in a work position and go, "Oh my God, aren't you fat?" You just wouldn't, because it would be offensive. So it's a and it is it's a very male dominated environment. There's a lot more women coming through, but it's police forces, it's banks, it's lots of corporate blue suits talking about strategic issues around fraud, systemic issues. So I get wheeled in quite a lot to go, what about the people? There's a person at the end of each one of these frauds that we're talking about. So I always try and draw it back to the victim focus, which is where I tend to make a bit of an impact and have the difference.
I'm still processing what you said about the reading age being between 9 and 12, and in fact, 7.1 million being lower than that in the UK. And going back to the financial literacy in schools and the reticence for that to happen, it's almost like the system wants people to fall into debt unknowingly.
We don't equip people with life skills unless your parents provide you with those life skills around. Like my mum is one of the most financially savvy people I've ever met. So she taught us at 18 we could bounce a credit card like onto an interest-free one. We understood mortgages. She comes in to my house and she's like, right, Martin Lewis says, right, you need to move all your money into this ISA and all these sort of things. It's just we don't teach people how to budget. They don't understand how to budget. And again, I think it's those core skills are what we should be teaching kids. Also, things like how to manage conflict. We don't teach them that either. And conflict is healthy. This is the other thing. We've sort of gone the other way where we shouldn't have conflict, and we should be taught at a really young age how to deal with conflict and that it's not unhealthy if it's dealt with in a healthy way. How to manage difficult conversations, how to honour our own needs and know that that's okay to do that, boundary setting, and all of this transcribes into the fraud and scam space as well, because a lot of this is the psychology around this, which is sort of where it maps across. How do we, it's okay to say to somebody who phones you up that says, I need to talk to you about your bank accounts. So say it's a criminal phoning you to say your bank account's been hacked. It's okay to say, I'm going to call the bank back without feeling bad that you've rejected somebody. Like, it's all right to say those things. Or if somebody's trying to offer you, somebody comes to your front door and says, I want you to sign up at this, and it's dark and it's a high pressure sales. It's okay to just go, I don't ever sign anything at the door, rather than make an excuse or sign it just to get them to go away. We need to teach these core skills, which will then, it will mean people are more financially literate, scams aware, resilient to different attacks, depending on whatever there's coming from, whether that is domestic abuse, emotional abuse, romance, fraud, whatever those things are. It's that question your questions. It's that critical thinking all of the time, isn't it? That we're lacking.
And I'm just thinking about what we are taught within a school environment. Does road safety even feature anymore? I don't know if it does.
I think so. Only can talk from my own personal experiences. If they want to do like a cycling course, they have to go after school and you have to pay for it. So again, then that's excluding half the population that can't afford to pay for it, don't see it as a benefit because their kids haven't got bikes.
Yeah.
We don't even do old school stranger danger, I don't think, anymore.
That's what I was thinking about, the stranger
Yeah.
danger and the crossing of the road, the green cross code or whatever it was
Yeah.
called, with Tufty the squirrel, whatever.
Yeah, but we don't.
Right.
I don't think we even do that. Like it's gone like hardcore, like beware of county lines. I'm like, all right, how about the man that's just chat? But also, the other thing we need to teach our children to do is say hello and good morning to people when they walk down the street. Like, we've gone too far the other way. Social isolation and loneliness is a key factor for fraud and scams. And being lonely is the equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day on your actual physical health. We've got hundreds of people in the world that don't talk to anybody all day, that don't speak to a person all day. And all it can take is a good morning, how's your day? As you're in Sainsbury's or you're in Tesco's, if you see someone in front of you that potentially is elderly and they're taking a little bit of time because they can't work out the coins, they might not be able to work out the coins. It's because they've got early onset dementia and they don't recognise the coins. Don't tut at them. Ask them if they need help. Don't enforce your help. Ask them. Have a chat. That might be the only person that you see the whole day. My mum volunteers. My mum's 76. My mum's a beautiful, great lady. She's just started volunteering in a cafe to sit for 2 hours a week, so that when people come in for a coffee on their own, she'll offer to go and sit with them and have a chat if they need it. And there's two reasons for that. One is it makes her feel good, but two, she's got a very strong sense of social justice, the same as, and that you can't take, you have to give something back. And we're not very good and I think that's something, if you have that, you have it, fully on. But again, that is something that could be taught. Give something back. I've moved this conversation somewhere really random now. I've gone on a massive side quest.
I don't think it is. I think it is entirely linked. But as you say, you are more vulnerable to scams if you are lonely, because you might want to have a chat with someone who
Yeah.
calls you or knocks at the door,
Yes.
right?
Yep. And you haven't got anyone
It's
to
very,
ask. So, you know, when you go to make a big decision, right? So, if I'm making a big decision, I will. There's two things. I'll phone. I've got two friends that I can phone and go, right, I need to make this decision. I need you to explain to you the decision I want to make and what I think. I also use my mum so that I can get someone to objectify my decision making process. Or even worse, I'll stand at either side of my kitchen island and pretend to be different people so I can hear me saying it out loud, because you have to say it out loud sometimes for you to go, no, that doesn't make sense. What are you talking about? But if you live by yourself and someone phones you up and offers you an amazing opportunity, an investment opportunity, or a romance opportunity, or you need to have that scare you into having all of your white goods protected, because if your fridge or washing machine break down, that's £500. And if you sign up for this protection policy, we'll repair it in the same 24 hours, so you won't be without. But it's only £50 a month on a direct debit. If you haven't got someone to go, what do you think about this? Because there isn't anybody there, and you don't want to phone someone because you wouldn't really phone somebody for that, because that wouldn't even be a big decision for me. Like, so you would go, you would probably sign up to it if you were pushed into that hot state where you're then coerced, pressurized, manipulated into making a different decision. So the social isolation thing, which is why the 30 to 35-year-old group is potentially particularly vulnerable to fraud and scams, because they were on their own during lockdown. They weren't married. They weren't at the age where you get married and have children. So a lot of them spent lockdown living on their own. And you've got the increased risk because 45% of over 75-year-olds have never even accessed the internet ever. So they're not getting hit up by the online fraud. But the 30 to 35-year-olds are shopping online. That's where they're at. So there's more scams coming at them continuously.
yeah, my goodness. Honestly, there is so much in here. I can hear why it has held your focus for so long and taken you into hyper focus many times. What have you heard yourself sharing today that stood out for you, Lou?
I think I had a little bit of a light, but I've had a little bit of a light bulb moment, which I will go away and I need to think about a little bit more. That the reason I do what I do is because of the fact that I probably wasn't supported in the best way that I could have been when I was younger, because of the fact that I wasn't understood as much as I understand myself now. So I think that's a light bulb moment that's going to make me want to cry a little bit, because it is. It's like, that makes sense now, Louise, why you have to look after everybody else because you didn't feel looked after, which is why sometimes other people's needs come before your own. So that's going to be something to think about over the next few days, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, and every time you see someone, you think that could have been me. So I have to look after them because it could have been you. And that's the I can't draw a line all the time.
Yeah, and like the martyr stuff and the self-sacrifice, and actually if I can make a difference over there, that'll make me feel better. It's all interlinked, isn't it? It's being told to shut up all the time is a really hard place to be in all of the time, because especially when I'm told to shut up, my defiance kicks in and I'm like, who are you telling to shut up? Which is not, I don't do that now. I am just like, just sit with that for a minute, sit with that. But there's also lessons in the fact that I did need to listen better, because I didn't listen. I waited to speak rather than listened. I don't do that now because I've learned and I've had constructive feedback as an adult about how to do that. But nobody told me how to do it. And that sounds really silly because but it's not. Nobody said, and nobody told me how to do that with attention deficit, with a marching band going on in my head where someone's got a broken tambourine and now I'm looking at the broken tambourine.
It's a really valid point to strip it right back down to the basics, to those core skills, to the skills that are assumed that people have. And some of the statistics that you shared today speak otherwise,
Yeah.
that, they haven't got the necessarily the intelligence or the tools to equip themselves. And the intelligence is the wrong way of phrasing it, because people can be very bright but they just haven't had the opportunity to pursue the education further and to understand. But yeah, stripping it right back to the core skills of listening and being understood is huge in this space.
And I love listening because I learn and I love to learn, but it's just sometimes hard. So it's
Yeah.
my children have been a gift to me, whilst they are the most difficult children to parent, and I would say that because I'm their mother. They were gifted to me because to hone my communication and my listening skills. They're meant to be my children, 100% meant to be my children. And they're beautiful now, but they will be beautiful adults, and they'll be well-rounded, and they'll be able to communicate effectively, and they'll be understood.
Yeah, well, mission accomplished in that respect for sure. And I hear just how powerful your work is, Lou. And so thank you so much for sharing. How could people connect and reach out, follow what the latest scams are and how to prevent them, people from becoming or succumbing to them?
They can. So if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's Louise Baxter on LinkedIn. If you want to look at the latest scams and do scams awareness training, you can go on to www.friendsagainstscams.org.uk or download the app. And it's in the App Store and on Google Play. It's a 20-minute free training course which educates you on how to protect your loved ones from fraud and scams, which then provides that vicarious learning. But it will teach you the signs to look out for to be able to identify somebody that you love or care about that means they might be susceptible or being targeted.
Well, I know what I'll be doing in my spare 20 minutes. That's
You
something
get a
I didn't
badge.
know existed.
Become a friend against scams. We've recruited 1.14 million friends so far.
And what if I want a certificate?
Well, if you want a certificate, you can download it. And if you want to do more, you can also, so it's like a call to action. So if you did want to go, right, do you know what? I really fancy doing that training to my book club, or I work in an organisation that could benefit, all of the materials are free and you become a scam champion. And then if you do a bit more, you become a scam ambassador. See what we do on a Friday.
I love that. Scambassador. That is just genius. Oh my goodness. Lou, thank you so much for sharing your focus on why. It has been an absolute pleasure, and you've shocked me to the core in some areas. I will definitely be taking this area more seriously. I will be having some conversations with my children and husband around scams, just making sure we're all protected, because I think that feeling that we're at the exception to the rule and that we're okay, as you proved, and very clearly demonstrated with the situational vulnerability, you just don't know. And it's actually not good to make those assumptions. So thank you. Do you have some final words, please?
Wherever you work, and if you deal with real people, which we don't always do that, but whether it's, I would always, if we can, treat people with as much empathy as we possibly can muster, but also don't disempower people. Ask them, what do you need? How can I help you? Rather than trying to decide what people need for themselves.
That's a wrap for today, but the journey doesn't end here. Share your takeaways, leave a review, or post your insights. Your voice helps others discover the value of these stories. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for ways to work with me. Get a copy of my book, or to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter packed with clarity and inspiration. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.